Engineering conversation and innovation. This is Schulich Connects, proudly sponsored by TD Insurance.
Good morning and welcome. Delighted to have everybody here both in person as well as online for our final Schulich Connects event of the academic year, Expanding Perspectives on Engineering. And this event is proudly sponsored by TD Insurance. The University of Calgary is located in the heart of southern Alberta. We both acknowledge and pay tribute to the traditional territories of the peoples of the Treaty 7, which include the Blackfoot Confederacy, consisting of the Siksika, the Piikani, and the Kainai First Nations, the Tsuut'ina First Nation, and the Stoney Nakoda First Nation, including the Chenokee, Bearspaw, and Goodstoney First Nation. The City of Calgary is also home to Métis Nation of Alberta Districts 5 and 6. It is the last event of the academic year, and I wish you could have been here 3 or 4 weeks ago when all our students, both undergraduate and graduate, seemed to be working on their end of year, end of term projects. And to say the engineering complex was humming is an understatement. It was just full of so much energy and just a real reminder of why we do everything that we do. So as I think about those students progressing through their degrees and going to graduation in just a few weeks, I remember that engineers are change makers. And to make positive change, we need to include a variety of experiences and backgrounds in the conversation and what we're developing in the design cycles and in the entire engineering cycle. So in engineering, diversity is essential. In our panel today, we'll discuss how engineers play a role in creating a better tomorrow. I think most of us know that, but I think they're really focused on how can we do that better. So before I pass it on to our speakers, some logistics. For our in-person guests, please hold your questions and we'll have a mic runner, as it says, to come around and give you the opportunity to ask your questions later in the event. For our virtual guests, please email your questions to ssemc@ucalgary.ca. And we have one of our staff members who will be very happy to read those questions to the panel. So I'd now like to take a moment to introduce you to our moderator for today, Dr. Lale Bejat. Lale is a professor in the Department of Electrical and Software Engineering, as well as in our Sustainability Systems group here at the Schulich School of Engineering. She holds the INSERC National Chair in Women in Science and Engineering for the Prairies region. Dr. Bejat has acted as an academic advisor for Google's Technology Development Guide and was a member of Google's Council on Computer Science Education. She is passionate about increasing the status of women and other underrepresented groups in science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. She has won numerous prestigious awards and is currently leading a change leadership program called Wise Planet with the mission to envision and build a just, equitable, diverse, and inclusive society. It's now my pleasure to pass things over to Lale, who will introduce us to the panel and get things going.
Thank you so much, Bill. It is my pleasure to be the moderator for our last Schulich Connect event of the season. As Bill mentioned, I'm Lale Bejat. I'm a professor in electrical and software engineering and sustainable systems, as well as the NSERC chair for women in science and engineering in the Prairie region. And my research mainly focuses on building computers, so I make them more power efficient and faster, as well as analyzing and building sustainable systems with a social justice lens. I would now like to introduce our panel for today. First, we have Dr. Emily Marasco, an assistant professor of software engineering here at Schulich School of Engineering. Dr. Marasco is also the Associate Dean, Equity, Diversity, Inclusion, and Accessibility. She's the founder of Adapt Lab, which means advancement in digital applications and pedagogical transformation. Dr. Marasco's pedagogical initiatives for digital transformation in education include digital and AI literacy, integration of cognitive diversity, and accessibility best practices. She's active as a science communicator and outreach speaker in the local education community and was recognized as one of Calgary's top 40 under 40 recipients. Please welcome Emily. And would you speak for 1 minute, Emily, and sort of a little bit about your research?
Sure. So my research is all pedagogical based, which means it's on the scholarship of teaching and learning and how we can improve the way we educate future engineers. So some of my team and some of my students right now are working on things like examining the intersectional bias in speech recognition algorithms that impact educational technology, looking at digital literacy and filling some of the gaps that we see in incoming engineering students, as well as AI literacy. How are we going to educate the next generation so that they are using AI tools in a responsible but also effective way?
Thank you, Emily. Next, we have Nanette Hall-Coverton, Sustainability Leader at Spartan Control. She's an alumnus of the Schulich School of Engineering and joined the Spartan Control after spending 8 years in the engineering community. In her current role, she serves as a Spartan's liaison to industry, education, innovation, and environmental communities. Nanette's recent focus has been centered on advancing innovation in clean energy technology ecosystem and having conversations on policy and sustainable supply chain. She dedicates and contributes her time, resources, and expertise to various non-for-profit groups and academic institutions, particularly in promoting and advancing youth and women in STEM. She has been a big champion of women, and she's being awarded a PEGA Summit Award today. Welcome, please welcome Nan.
Thank you. Applause is not common for me, so it's great.
And Nan, would you give a little bit of an introduction about your work?
Oh boy. So my current work, I started at Spartan Controls 30 years ago. Yes, I started when I was 10, but so I've had a chance to enjoy a 37-year career and more focused on sustainability over just the last 4 years. And to me, my role now is connecting. And that's the important part, is making sure that we're able to connect the different components and diverse thoughts and diverse industries so that we can actually achieve a common goal of heading net zero by 2050.
Thank you so much, Nan. So to get our panel warmed up, I would like to start with some questions for consideration. So first of all, can you please introduce yourself, talk about your journey towards engineering leadership, and share an experience that expanded your perspective on your work? And maybe we can start with Nan and then go to Emily.
Well, my engineering path has been not smooth. It's never linear. And so when I graduated from engineering, that was in 1987. So yes, I am that old. And there was no work. You know, my classmates had actually posted all the rejection letters they'd received from industry actually in our home room, which was over downstairs. And so the entire wall was plastered with one student's rejection letters. And so it was very, very hard. And so I chose a different path of trying to find employment. I needed to make money, so I worked for a chiropractor during the day, and then I volunteered for the '88 Olympics. And so that really opened things up for me by spending time in a different field and making connections that way. And so that's when I found the power of connections. Through those connections, I was able to get my first job, and then my second job, and my third job. And so to me, that's what led me to where I am now. And so through that power of connection, I lead sustainability, but we work on a hub and spoke model. So I'm the hub, so I have to be the company know-it-all, right, Aaron? And connect with our people, our Indigenous engagement, our communities, safety, health, into industry and education, which is the foundation of our sustainability focus, environment and innovation.
And we are so lucky to be connected to you. Emily?
You know, my path to my current role has been kind of a series of fortunate accidents, really. I was really fortunate, actually, as a Schulich alum, that when I was in my undergraduate degree, I had a lot of mentors who showed me some different connections to engineering, really a diverse path of engineering. And so that started with connecting engineering and music and how we could use signals and signal processing to better understand what's happening for woodwind and brass players. And that really resonated with me because I hadn't considered that engineering could tie into so many diverse career paths and applications. And then as I moved forward into research, I then learned about engineering education and how we can now connect the engineering design process to also how we design learning environments, how we design educational technology, how do we analyze learning outcomes and whether or not we are having an impact on our students. And so seeing all of those diverse applications of engineering has really led me to the role I have now and the impact I get to have on students.
Thank you, Emily. Now, taking up from your answer, when people talk about diversity in engineering, a lot of people just directly jump into meaning to be women. And can you discuss other dimensions that you have considered in your leadership and share an example of a project you learned where collaboration with people from diverse perspectives led to more innovative solutions?
Okay, so I actually just gave a guest lecture to our first year design course on types of diversity. And what I really like the students to focus on when they're considering who are we designing for? Who is the client? Who is the user? We tend to think of diversity as a demographic checkbox, but there's actually different dimensions to diversity where, yes, demographics is a part of it. We have physical diversity, but we also have a lot of invisible diversity factors. And that could be something like a disability that you can't see or a chronic illness that someone's living with. It can also be lived experience. So that means that I want to see future engineers who are single moms, new Canadians, the musicians, the athletes. They have been trained and had life experiences that bring diversity to their engineering work. And if we can enable them to be their authentic selves and bring that to the engineering practice, then we have a different lens on what we're designing and how we're impacting society. So one of the initiatives I've been working on recently, both through research and through connections with some of our faculty members, is on neurodiversity. And how can we support students who identify as being neurodiverse and might approach their education and their engineering practice in a different way? So what supports can we put into place, whether that is more flexible deadlines, assessments, even when you set the deadline, can have an impact on a neurodiverse student. So looking at some of the pedagogical practices right now.
Hey, thank you. And Matt?
This one I've not led an initiative, so that's the part that I'm having a hard time, but I've helped support different things. So I think of myself more of a servant leader than I am a leader. And so we've supported, or the work I've helped initiate within our company is, as well as my colleague Aaron James over there, we've now helped stand up Spartan Supporting Women, but it includes everyone. And so we're building support systems to allow for all voices to be heard within the company. And to me, it's anybody who reaches out to look for support, I'm happy to support them. It doesn't matter where and how and why where they've come from. I guess my key focus is around those with more of a socioeconomic background and supporting them. And then also trying to find ways to support students who actually can't even get into engineering right now, right? So, talking to a couple colleagues, they have their children trying to get into engineering and they have a 91% average and they can't get in. So now how do we help them become what they want to become if they can't get into the schools?
Yeah, that's totally, especially the socioeconomic is something that we tend not to consider. And the power of those connections that you're making makes sure that bringing all those diverse perspectives and groups into.
For sure. And so very happy that Dr. Michael Kalos, and I'll openly advertise this, he's not here, so I will advertise for him. He helped out. A friend of mine had met someone at a Queen's event, and their father had recently passed and needed to find a job very, very quickly and finish school early. And Dr. Kalis was able to help her out. So it was fantastic. And she needed to have a job. So
And Mike, Dr. Kalis, is one of our faculty members and department head for the biomedical. Yeah, thank you. So now let's go to another sort of a problem, which is the world right now is at a very crucial junction. With rapid changes because of digital revolution, we all saw ChatGPT coming and everybody was thinking, what am I gonna do now? Especially in education space, but in many other things, AI is changing our lives and our work. And as well as biotechnology, I don't know how many people have heard about Neuralink coming up, and we will be able to do many things that we can't even imagine right now. So can you talk a bit about why you think expanding perspectives in engineering will empower us to find better solutions for our challenges, and maybe give an example if you can think of one?
Do you want to go? Yeah. So I'm a seconded resource over to Avatar Innovations. So I don't know if anybody, are you familiar with Avatar Innovations? Anyway, they're a studio, a venture studio that works for industry within industry. And so it's sponsored by a lot of folks that are in the oil and gas community trying to create a clean technology. And so I love it because what we do in order to get diverse voices, we bring in people from the companies that have diverse backgrounds. So we may have a lawyer on a team, an engineer on a team. We may have someone from HR on a team. And they create opportunities to try, or they search out opportunities to create new technologies. And so hearing the diverse voices in those teams create new ideas and new chances for us to have a better world has been very uplifting for me and others in the team. And so we've now built a huge alumni that get together often and try and ideate together. So.
Whether we're working with AI technologies or any new digital technology, it's really important that the users and the developers understand the human dimension of the application. So what are we intending to use the technology for, and who has been part of the design team? What have they considered? So the Gender Shades project was done in conjunction with the Algorithmic Justice League through MIT. And this was a couple of years ago. They were looking at facial recognition algorithms. And they found, they categorized a few different algorithms. They found in IBM Watson in particular, if you were a woman of color, you were 34.4% more likely to be misidentified than a Caucasian man. And the reason this is problematic, and I like to use this as an example for students, is that if we're going to be using that algorithm for, say, a justice or legal application, now we're seeing a bias already built into the technology that could have a significant impact on its application. So having a more diverse design team, more diverse pilot testing, beta testing, if we can get more perspectives in that development process, we're going to be able to reach more people. We are designing for a diverse public. That means as engineers, we need to be diverse ourselves.
Yeah, thank you. And thank you for bringing that up. And if you want to know more examples on the same line, there's a really good book by Cathy O'Neill called Weapons of Math Destruction. So it talks about all the way that algorithms are pervasive in our world and basically bias the decisions on one side or another. So from that, I would like to also talk about a little bit about the impact of underrepresentation or overrepresentation. And I think we all agree that diversity is really important for us. But as you mentioned also, it is not just the numbers. No. It is how underrepresentation or overrepresentation is maintained and how people who are overrepresented or underrepresented also have proximity to power. So where does the power lie? So you might have a lot of women, for example, in a team, but they might have no power to actually make any decisions or even a voice at the table. Would you be able to describe some of the ways you have advocated to remove the barriers for underrepresented group, either within Schulich School of Engineering or in general engineering or where you work?
So one thing that I have found to be pretty effective is helping to connect smaller communities together. So for example, we just launched, or helped the students launch, I should say, a student chapter of the National Society of Black Engineers. And so these students are immensely motivated. We have a few student leaders who have taken on this role and helping to elevate their voices and giving them opportunities to showcase what they're doing, both in their technical work as well as with the chapter. Really, it's that championing piece. Like you said, to get more diversity in leadership is really important. Mm-hmm. So helping the students make those connections, helping them to, again, elevate their voices and bringing them into positions where they can network, elevate their own internships, for example, and take on more leadership roles there and continue their advocacy. It's really important to me personally that when our students leave the Schulich School of Engineering, that they're not faced with a different world when they get out into industry. I want them to continue being their authentic selves. And so the more support we can have our students provide to each other and from people like yourselves by attending events like this, we really want to help elevate those voices as they continue on in their career paths.
This is a difficult topic for me. I don't know if I have made an influence on or made a specific or have a specific example, but I had a conversation with a colleague the other day and we were trying to put together a panel. And, we went through and said, well, this person's got this skill and that qualities that we want on the panel. So those are the voices we want to make sure is heard because of the qualities of what they have. Then he reminded me that it needed to be a diverse panel. So that to me is the direct effect I've had on him. Indirect effect, it was him telling me that I need to consider something that I didn't think of at that time. So to me, I've done my job.
And I think you're being very modest. You have done a lot, including championing any initiative that would bring up diverse groups of people. So we really thank you for that.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Yeah. So I'm just going to end this session by giving you the time to see if you would like to have a message for the audience that you would like to leave, either in terms of what we can do as Schulich alumni community to further advance diverse perspectives, or anything else.
I'm going to deviate a little bit from my original plan because I saw some faces change in the crowd when I said that I don't want our students to face a different world when they leave our faculty and are faced with some of the barriers out in industry. So really what you can do is elevate those voices and be that champion for the new grads, for the new employees, for the different diverse groups that you see in your own units, companies, etc. They need that support. They might be the first of their particular diverse demographic, or maybe they're not the first, but they don't see that representation at a leadership level. So thinking about who is getting to speak, who is getting to lead projects, who is getting the promotions, what are people being paid across different roles, who is being sent to conferences, who is representing the company, who is taking on technical roles versus more administrative or communication work. So thinking about that and trying to keep more diversity in those different areas to allow people to be their authentic selves in their engineering practice. There are lots and lots of studies. Deloitte and McKinsey both did 2 really big ones a couple of years ago that show that innovative teams are diverse teams. They have 30% better outcomes, 20% less risk. So there are payoffs to really making sure we have these inclusive, diverse teams, and it really is going to impact our engineering future.
And maybe set an example.
Set an example, yes, absolutely.
I think that's the biggest thing for me, is making sure I set an example. And my mantra, or my personal mantra, is if you can see it, you can be it. And so I've had a few folks within the company, first female outside salesperson at Spartan Controls, said, I didn't know a woman could take on that kind of role. And so that to me was empowering to make sure that I set an example for the future, and that I set a trend, of an upward trend, to allow more people who look like me to do more.
Yeah, thank you. And I think both of you have been great role models and set examples, but also everybody here today who have taken the time to participate. And so thank you so much for being interested in this and being a great champion. For this last portion of the Schulich Connect, we are going to take questions from the audience, and we'll alternate between people who are online and in person. So if there are any questions, please raise your hand, and there will be a
Mic runner.
Microphone coming over.
A mic runner. All right. Maybe, would you like my mic?
They're choosing the mic runner.
Thanks. I appreciated the comments about the importance of connections and diversity. And it, certainly the discussion around within the engineering environment and then post. But what about getting the diverse mix coming into engineering? Are we doing a good enough job there? Or is it a homogenous group that we're looking to recognize the importance of diversity, or are we bringing in a more diverse group that naturally would kind of gravitate in that direction? Thanks again.
Yeah, I just from my personal experience being around the university a lot, yes, it is very much more diverse than when I went through school. I got to attend graduation in 2022, and looking out into the crowd was the biggest class ever. I think it's the biggest class now. And then I'm also an Iron Ring warden. And so just a few weeks ago, we handed out 700 rings, and definitely a very, very diverse crowd. It was pretty amazing and pretty fulfilling for me to be part of that.
We have a lot of students that have come from a real diverse range of backgrounds. But one thing we could do better, I think, is in some of, and I say we as a society, some of our youth outreach activities, targeting some more of the underrepresented groups that we'd like to see moving into engineering. For example, Black youth in STEM. That's something that's a little bit underrepresented in Calgary in particular. Supporting our LGBTQ plus students. So we're in the process of launching a new chapter of EngiQueers. We sponsored a group of students to go to the national conference, and I have to tell you, they were the most engaged conference attendees I've ever seen. They made this beautiful post-conference report. They made a vlog. They have their personal handwritten reflections were all copied in, pictures. It was very impressive. So we see all these students coming together. We have a society for Southeast Asian scientists and engineers. We've got women in science and engineering. Schulich Soundstage is our group for musicians within engineering. So even diversity of thought. bringing all those different communities together. So students are coming in. We have a diverse group, but helping them to see that their diversity isn't something to keep out of engineering, but bring to engineering. I think that's something to really focus on right now.
I just wanted to add quickly that we actually do have a scholarships for students who come in from diverse backgrounds. So we give $4,000 scholarship to students who come either from diverse backgrounds or have worked on increasing inclusivity and diversity in their life. So, and that is one of the things that shows how Schulich actually puts, value to the things that the money where they are actually working. And that has been a very great tool for us too as well to change the.
And I know some of the speed skaters, having been involved with sport and the Oval since 88 games, Schulich has been very accommodating for athletes or student athletes as well, right? And so they're competing around the world all the time and they need to complete their studies. So, Lucas Makowski, you may or may not know him, but he won a gold medal at 2010 Olympics, and he's a very successful engineer and now living in Houston. So, his experience here was phenomenal. And,
Alex Go was also one of our civil
Alex,
engineering students who
correct.
won several medals
for Canada as well.
Yeah. Other things we're doing is we're removing barriers. So one of the good examples of that is our Bioengineering Summer Institute. One of the things we found a few years back is for many students who are on the IB program in rural areas, or students who for some reason took the first Physics 20 and found it really hard because they didn't have good math background, that they don't come to engineering because they think physics is hard. And we know that this is not true, but we also know that we can actually teach them the physics. So we have this Bioengineering Summer Institute for students who don't have the physics background, and we found that the students actually do really well. And one of our first cohort of students won medals during her graduation.
And our former president, Mike Began, helped support an initiative a few years ago for the energy engineering program here. And that allowed state students to transfer over to the University of Calgary. So, we need to have diversity not only in thought, but diversity in how we conduct the programming, and being able to include more people that to become engineers. We have actually 2 colleagues that I work with very, very closely that went through that program. They're exceptional people.
I think Vanita has a question.
Hi, thanks very much for taking the time to have this conversation. I think what I'm wondering is about, I love the training and I love the exposure you're doing to our students. What we're seeing sometimes is those students don't stay in industry. So how do we keep people in? What's the retention plan? And the second part of that question is that how do you sandwich this training so we start to train the more experienced people who are making these decisions to get educated like you are students?
So Vanita, there's Enbridge is actually taking a big step towards addressing that. And so they've got a brand new program out where they're trying to hire people who've had a gap in their careers. So maybe they took time off to have children or deal with something else. And so they actually have a career fair in the next week or two to try and attract people who've had that gap and bring them back into the workforce. So that's one solution. 2, retention is something that we need to address, not just with engineering, but other professions as well, right? So if I look at law, for example, or even nursing, there's a huge drop-off. And so those in senior positions, like in engineering houses, I know those numbers, it's like 5%. We started at 25 or 30% when we graduate, and it's 5% at senior leadership. So how do we retain them? How do we keep them in the industry? A lot of them move off to something different. I don't have an answer, but I know people are starting to address it and look at avenues.
So some of the tips that I mentioned before, I think are really important. And I've seen a lot of employers who want to take those steps and aren't sure how to get started. So myself, actually, I've gone into some industry, either environments or companies will bring me in actually to speak. And I'll just talk a little bit about some best practices, why we need diversity in engineering, and happy to speak anywhere. If you just let me know, I will come and evangelize for you. But doing a little bit of training around first the need to have a more inclusive environment, and then actually having an action plan. So taking the time to sit down and put down some concrete implementations or initiatives, like the gap year hiring, for example, but even things like commitment to visibility in leadership or targeted hiring towards a more diverse pool. There are some companies that have very specific support networks within, larger firms that they bring people together for social hours where they can do a little bit of mentorship. And really, again, it comes down to those elements where you look at who's up for promotion, who is leading projects, who is getting the opportunities. Because people are leaving not because they're not passionate about engineering, but because they don't feel that their talents and skills are being used effectively. And so they're going to find roles where they can have that impact. A couple of years ago, it's more than a couple of years ago, a number of years ago, I surveyed the first year students. I'm going to say maybe 10 years ago. And I asked the students what they wanted out of a future career. Why did they choose engineering? What were they passionate about in a project? And I used to see a very binary gender divide. The students who identified as men would say, I want to have a technical challenge. And the students who identified as women said, I want to have an impact on the world. When I repeated that study about 10 years later, I saw a change. Now all of the students tell me they want to have an impact on the world. So we're really seeing diverse students, creative students, students who, they have these varied lived experiences. They need to see engineering as a place where they can have impact. So we can do all the outreach in the world and bring them in and say, yes, you can be creative, you can be innovative in engineering, we'll train you to do that. But they want to go out and actually have that impact on the world. And so they need to see themselves reflected in those projects, in those roles, even if they're seeing that it's going to take them a few years to train towards that and to make those connections. They need to see their end goals reflected in what they're doing.
And so sort of, I'll put a plug for the Wise Planet here too. So as part of the NSERC Chair for Prairie, the NSERC Chair for Women in Science and Engineering, the Wise Planet program, which is run from Schulich, is a change leadership program for early to mid-career people in engineering and science. So we have members from Spartan. They come in and take a year of leadership training, but the leadership is not sort of a typical leadership where they say what you should do to fit within the system. So how to fix a woman to fit within the system. It is how you actually look at the system and figure out where the problems lie and then remove those barriers. And in addition to that, how you can lead the changes that we are seeing with regards to AI and the climate change. And so that's part of it. But to take that back to their organizations, they also do a project. And they take the learnings and make a change within their organization. So we had people from Spartan who made a network for underrepresented groups in Spartan. So you can talk with Nan and Aaron here, so to see some of the impact they had. And they have done this too in other organizations as well. And also we empower knowledge building. So Marielle, who's sitting on your desk, she has actually made a whole toolkit for male allies. So what are the best practices for allies to take that in? We have also a toolkit for how to reduce the burden of non-technical work on underrepresented groups or give them credit for the work they done. And so there are all these things that are available and are being built based on good research, but also to empower the graduates from Schulich, but also graduates in all engineering to be effective leaders.
But it starts with the conversation. And so Lale has developed a game that you can use. And so we had that game, or we played the game. and it actually opened up a lot of conversation within the office. So we had new graduates and new hires to more senior members of our company. And so having a chance to be in a more casual setting, having the game, we're talking through the different pieces or points on the game was a massive change for us for actually understanding the work that's being done by WISE. So it's great.
Thank you for saying that.
Yeah, you're welcome.
And maybe I'll put in another plug too then. If you yourselves or members of your organization would like to do some more training or learn about more resources in this area, we are actually hosting a 2-day summit next week, Thursday, Friday, called the Making Change Summit, open to anybody and all, where we're going to talk a little bit about equity, diversity, and also leadership. So things like handling microaggressions, universal design, really being more of an inclusive leader. And we're happy to support registration for anybody for whom the fee might be a barrier. So Making Change Summit, we have a webpage, or email Schulich Diversity, and we will get you connected.
There will be also fun dancing too.
Fun dancing.
Yeah, fun dancing.
Maybe we can get a question from online.
Yeah, for sure. And actually, it segues really well because you talked about the engineering side. This question comes from Mariana. How do you promote and inspire underrepresented groups or from different socioeconomic backgrounds to take the leap and be interested in engineering and innovation, which is considered an elite field?
Ooh, I don't think it's an elite field. You just need to, if it's, personally, if you want to be part of it, you can be part of it. If you want to volunteer, connect with me and I'll get you connected with those folks that are tied into those spaces. I volunteer a lot. Those of you who know me really well know maybe I'm overcommitted, but I'm part of the leadership team of the Clean Resource Innovation Network, which is a network of networks. I'm on the board of the Petroleum Technology Alliance of Canada. Again, we look at innovation. And then I also advise to the McPhail School of Energy at SAIT, and advise to mechanical and chemical. And I think that's because I've made myself available. And that's the key thing. If you make yourself available and you want it, you can access it.
I think also connecting to what students are passionate about. I do a lot of work in the K-12 space. And if you ask a grade 5 student what they want to be when they grow up, it'll usually align with music or sports. If you ask a first-year engineering student what they're passionate about outside of school, it's usually music and sports. So it doesn't change. It's just whether or not they see a career path and how they connect to what they're passionate about. So if you can show them, one of our alum, Monique Sullivan, Olympic athlete, mechanical engineer, also did engineering education. She actually took her knowledge of sports and Olympics as well as engineering, and she built and correct me if I get this wrong, she built a vest to help athletes warm up their muscles before they start doing their sport. And it was that intersection of the two that she really had a passion for, as well as math education, right? Connecting students with the math behind athletics and the way they have to calculate power or trajectory and that sort of thing. There's a lot of physics and math tied in there. And for her, that was a great way of connecting fields together. And students really respond to that.
I think one of the things we do really well at Schulich is also having open doors and inclusivity so people can come to us. So Bill mentioned 2-3 weeks ago, we had the capstone design fair. And you could see other people coming in, like children and so on, to see what is happening. And when you see the range of things that engineers do, even they're just graduating, they're just going to the work, but they can do all of these interesting things, and they just look like you or your brother and so on, it doesn't become elite. It becomes something that everybody has seen, has used, and can do it. And so I think by having a very inclusive and open spaces, and also showcasing, again, Women in Engineering Day, we bring in hundreds of female students to campus and so on. I think those are some of the things we can do to show that this is something for everyone.
Yeah, and I think also evidenced at the Calgary Youth Science Fair, which was hosted at the Oval, that Schulich was a big sponsor. I got to attend a portion of it, and just walking around the room and seeing all the different submissions by the students. I was shocked at the advancement of students. Like when I was their age, there was no way I would have thought of those ideas at all. And so, this one student who won the gold medal had created a prosthetic arm for his grandfather, and it cost him only $400. And so last year he won an award, and this year he won the gold medal because now the arm can actually do rotations that it couldn't do last year. So pretty amazing. He's 17 and going into engineering.
Thank you. So I think this is the perfect spot to end this conversation. I'm very sad to do that, but we need to get to the final formalities of today's event. Thank you so much, Emily and Nan, for coming. I appreciate the opportunity to moderate this discussion and would like to now send it back to our Dean, Bill Rosehart, for some closing remarks.
So I've been relegated to formalities. Let us thank Lale, Emily, and Nan for a great discussion this morning. And I know the three of them aren't going to run off, and so I suspect there are probably more questions, so please come up and chat with them afterwards. And if you're joining us virtually, you can find them with Google pretty quickly and send them an email, and I know they would be happy to continue the conversation. Thank you for joining us here today. While it is our last Schulich Connects of our academic year, we very much look forward to welcome you back next fall when we relaunch our Schulich Connects. And I'll just take a moment to flag. I'll get Anders Nygren to stand up. My term as dean will be finishing, and Anders will be our interim dean for a year, and so he will be hosting. So thank you, Anders. Have a wonderful rest of your day. Thank you.
Thanks for tuning in to this Schulich Connects, proudly sponsored by TD Insurance. We'll see you next time.